folks, Captain Mike here from Salty Cape. I'm here with my longtime friend, Captain Dave Perros. We're out here off Monomoy, Chatham, Cape Cod. It's early September, just the beginning of the fall run. In the fall run, this time of year is a very special time to be an inshore angler here on Cape Cod because you can get striped bass, big and small, bluefish, big and small, albies, bonito, the sea bass are in close, just everything starts showing back up. And they all stall just a little bit here on Cape Cod before everything continues on its migration. So the name of the game today is a light inshore outfit that's capable of catching any of the aforementioned species. We're gonna come targeting striped bass, but we're gonna be ready for everything. We're stemming the tide, we're fishing the rips, we're bouncing all over. Got all the tricks in the bag, but my favorite lure this time of year for a situation where I don't know what I'm gonna catch is a little slowtail. They're keyed in on small bait here, and I can fish this fast, certainly can fish it slow, hence the name, and I'm good to go. So let's talk about approach here. So Captain Dave has us in front of the rip. There's all kinds of rips out here. I'm armed, rigged, and ready to go. I'm gonna let Dave talk about what he's doing in terms of boat positioning.
So basically what we're doing here is we're doing what they call stemming the tide. The current is running in sort of two directions here. It's running this way and it's also sliding us in that direction. And what I'm gonna do is keep the boat off the white water so that Mike can put a cast out and let the current pick it up, pick the lure up, and swing it back to where the fish are holding. I'm not going to allow my boat to actually go completely into the rip. It's a big mistake a lot of people make, is that they basically put the boat right in the middle of the rip, and that spooks the fish out. It's just not as effective. So by bumping the boat in and out of gear, sometimes if the current is slower, like today the current is kind of sluggish, I'll actually back the boat down towards the rip, put it in neutral, let it slide out, and this allows your angler, instead of casting directly in to the white water, you want to cast either parallel, according to the speed of the current, or you want to go up current or up tide and let it swing in, which is where the fish will be sitting. It's kind of amazing sometimes with these rips where the fish they'll hold in a specific spot. You could fish the entire rip, it looks all the same, but if you hit that one spot, you're into fish.
We're going to do is we're going to stem the tide fishing the swing, and by fishing the swing, very similar to how like a trout angler would fish a stream, we're in the rip, just big sandbars causing this rip, a lot of tide here off Monomoy, and we're just going to stem the tide. I'm going to cast up tide into the smooth water and just swing my bait up and over. There's a lot of small baits in the area, so I'm trying to replicate a small wounded baitfish that lost its way, getting swept down tide. Dave's gonna hold us in position. I'm gonna cast up into the smooth water. I'm gonna gauge my line, get any of the slack out, so I have a direct connection to the lure, and that's largely important so you can feel what's going on. So a hit can be very subtle. And see, I'm not even reeling the lure, I'm just doing the swing. Now this is a slowtail with those little ribbon tails. The lure is doing the work for us, and they pick it up right at the end of the swing of the cast, just like that. And we're here off Monomoy. It's where the warm Nantucket Sound meets the cool Atlantic. So all kinds of stuff here, and we're off to a heck of a start of the day right now. Get him in. Get our measurements. A nice little striped bass. Now these baits, can't stress enough how slow you can fish them. Now I'm just holding the rod, but that bait's moving with the tide. Lots of action with those ribbon tails. Now, right as I start engaging, that's where I often get the hit. Oh, right there, just like that, just on the drop. That's a good fish. And it's funny, when you get those hits, because the lure's not doing anything, it can often feel like a tap of a scup, or your line can go light, which is what happened that time. All of a sudden it felt like I had no lure on. And that's the fish picking up and rolling toward me. And yeah, this feels like a good fish. Got a fair amount of drag on this reel. But it's also hard to gauge how big a fish is when you're in the rip, because Dave's holding our position in the rip here, so I'm bringing the fish through a little bit of tide. Taking me over to the starboard side of the boat here. Now there's a big bluefish in the area, so I don't know yet if this is a striped bass or a blue. It's coming up to the surface, which is usually a telltale sign it's a bluefish, but this went back down. This is a decent fish. It's the biggest bluefish I've seen in a while. I can't believe I still have this fish on with this little sop bait and a light leader. So this is a big bluefish. I am not going to take him into the boat. I think he's a good candidate for the de-hooker. Just going to leave him in the water. Honking blue. And just hook the bend of the hook like that. There it goes. Now, I may own a lure company and have access to thousands of these baits, but I'm still cheap. And what I like to do is carry a little bit of super glue with me, and I just put a couple drops in along the cut. And the thinnest glue you can find, the better. It has the fastest curing time. In this case, I have Loctite brand. And I'm just going to hang it on the rod here for a minute while I cap the glue and put the glue away, and it should be good to go by the time I get back to the bait. Just a little bit about this area of Monomoy, which is really sort of a system of shoals, a series of shoals. You've got burses, you've got handkerchief, and you've got shovelful shoals, but not just those mainstream shoals. There's a lot of nooks and crannies, sandbars, cuts, holes, deep water, a lot of current. And what's great about Monomoy, why it so often holds fish, it's sort of the intersection point between the warm waters of Nantucket Sound, meaning the cool waters of the open Atlantic. So water temperature can even vary quite a bit depending on time of year and which tide you're on. And it's a really special place. There's a lot going on. You've got all kinds of baitfish for one, sand eels. I've seen herring, peanut bunker, full-size bunker, squid. I'm sure I'm missing some silver sides. But so it's just chock full of bait and consequently chock full of fish in the spring, you know, later in the season, maybe starting around June. This is an epic striper spot, certainly bluefish throughout the season, bass come and go. A lot of times folks come here in the night in the heat of the summer. And it's early September now, so you can expect to see a mix of bass, blues, and albies. Great ground fishing here, a known sea bass spot, certainly a good fluke spot. So if a fish is going to exist inshore on the south side of the Cape, it's going to happen at Monomoy with some regularity. Just a great spot to fish. It's accessible to a lot of different ports. Nantucket, it's a short zip across. Where Hoagie's home port is in Falmouth. It's my boat at a 20-knot cruise. It's maybe a 45-minute run, but it's just a special place. It's certainly one of the more iconic fishing destinations here on Cape Cod. Lots of history, lots of life. You'll see seals. I can only count on one hand the amount of times I've been actually skunked here. May not be my target fish. It's just a super fishy spot, and you know, big wide area. The one tip I would have here, if you know there's fish in the area and you're not seeing them, even if you're with the fleet, snoop around. There's like infinity of little shoals and sandbars. You just keep hopping from one to the next, and you know, eventually one of those shoals will be holding the, you know, bass or blues that you're targeting. So we missed the hookup with a new battery in the microphone, but as you can hear me now, we got that situated, and we were in the rip setting up for stripers, and we saw a bunch of greenbacks shooting through the rip. So I'm in a bit of the doghouse with Dante, the cameraman here, but I will say I did sight cast to the Bonito, the albie, I think is what it is, that I just couldn't wait any longer. And again, that's why I like fishing with a small slowtail this time of year, because you just don't know what you're gonna find. But we came ready for the albies, and here we are. And easy audible we can run. And again, the power of the little slowtail is there's nothing that won't eat it. It's just the right size, the right action. You can fish it fast, you can fish it slow, and here we are with an albie. So we've got a bluefish, an albie, and a striper, and that's pretty close to a slam if you ask me. So cool, just running the rip. And they do that out here. That's one thing I'll say about albies, is if you can target them when they're holding on some kind of structure, they're a little more responsive to a cast. So this is the first albie we are landing for the Hogy albie study. And I'm gonna do this quick. Okay. So caught this guy in the mouth. I'm gonna say no blood, or a little blood. That's minimal amount of blood. We're gonna go fork length. 27-inch albie. Small amount of blood in the chin. 27 inches on his mouth, I should say. 27 inches. Get it back in the water. Off it goes. So the outfit I have today is a standard issue Inshore medium duty light tackle outfit. It's a 7-foot St. Croix rod. Now the reel I have here is the Daiwa Saltist MQ4000. I've got 20-pound test braid on it, connected to a 20-pound test fluorocarbon leader. I just use a uni to uni knot to connect my leader to my braid. Now the lure we're using today is the Hogy Slowtail. This is a 3.5-inch version, weighs about an ounce. Now this lure is a great imitator of a lot of small baitfish. It's the right size and profile to be, whether it's a silver side, it's in that same size and space as a sand eel, small squid, all of which we're seeing here today. Now there's a lot of bait in the rips, and the stripers are just moving back in from a long hot summer here. It's early fall, and so there are a few fish here. There's bonito and albies and bluefish mixed in. So my lure selection today, not only did I want something small that would match the hatch, something that would be appropriate for pretty much any species we may have encountered. Today we pretty much hit for the rotation with a bass, a bluefish, and an albie. And the great thing about this lure is we're fishing in a lot of shallow areas here at Monomoy, and the technique we're using today is called fishing the swing. And you'll notice these two outboard shaped fantails on this little on the slowtail, I should say. And the great thing about these, where they're facing outward, is it really doesn't take much movement for this lure to impart a lot of action. So when we're fishing the swing, we're casting up tide, letting the lure sink. Now as that lure sinks, those tails will flutter, and as it drifts on the swing itself, the tails are going to flutter. And then of course when we engage and reel it in, they're going to flutter. So pretty much the moment this lure enters into the water, it's going to be full of action and full of life. And the presentation we're going to have is slow in the sense that there's not a lot of reel retrieve, and for much of the cast there's no reel retrieve at all. So we're fishing this bait very, very slow, hence the name of the lure, but the action is going to be very vibrant and lifelike this whole time because of these little tails. Now this is a heavy duty VMC Barbarian hook. This is a fairly heavy duty inshore outfit. You know, so if we got a big albie or a stripe or whatever, this hook is plenty strong. We're not worried about hook strength in any way, shape, or form. It's a tough little lure. It's a great option today when you know there's going to be varied bait. The fish are going to be finicky. Paired with a long, light leader, we're pretty much good to go for any situation we're going to encounter, in skinny rips like we're here today at Monomoy. So I want to deep dive on the leader just for a moment. Normally I would fish, maybe a 48-inch leader, like an arm's length of line, but we're in really skinny water, really clear water, and the fish here can sometimes be very finicky, so I tend to double my leader length when I'm fishing with little baits like this, light tackle outfits, again, in clear, skinny water. And so 2 arms length of line is a good reference point. Say that's anywhere between like 6 to 10 feet, depending on how many reties you have. We've retied a couple times today. But that's the advantage of using a lighter leader too. It's not going to impact your cast too much. Then certainly, I always like a little loop knot when connecting to the lure. It's going to give it the most amount of action. But when you're in these conditions, skinny water again, double your leader length that you're normally going to use. Try to avoid terminal hardware, no swivels. Go with a uni knot to connect your leader, your braid to your leader, and then a little loop knot lastly to your lure to give it the most amount of action. Well, it's officially lunchtime, and so we're going to call that a wrap. Great day, Dave. Thanks so much for having me out. It's always an adventure, and got a hit for the rotation today. Got a bass, blue, and an albie, a rock, and some laughs too while we're at it.
Yeah, it was the finest kind. Never a dull moment with Captain Mike and Jack and Dante. I tell you, I look forward to this trip every year.
Yeah, well, good time. So officially the kickoff of the fall run. May not feel like it. I'm regretting my choice of shirt and bib color today, but kickoff of the fall run. Doesn't feel like it temperature-wise, but all the fish are doing the fall run things they're supposed to, and let's head back to the barn.
There you go.
All right, well, this doesn't happen every day, that's for darn sure. Coming back into Chatham here, found these Bonito. And we got a boat coming. We're in the middle of a channel. Now we've got an official Cape Cod slam, a bass, a blue, an albie, and a Bonito, which is my favorite eating fish. Well, this guy is smoked warm water fish, but this guy is super good on the grill, so he's coming home with me.